On January 14th, 2025, my 75th birthday, I overheard the words that would change my life forever. The celebration, held in the elegant home I designed 40 years ago, was my son James's idea. He always insisted on honoring me properly, or so he claimed, though I'd long sensed his discomfort with my legacy overshadowing his own. The party was a grand affair, filled with former colleagues and friends, their voices echoing through rooms that were slowly becoming unrecognizable as my daughter-in-law, Rebecca, redecorated them to her taste. I smiled through their toasts, my heart heavy with a truth I hadn't yet fully grasped. As I excused myself from a conversation with old architectural partners, my legs felt unusually unsteady, a symptom that had worsened since my sister Elaine's sudden death 3 years prior. I made my way down the hallway toward the bathroom, leaning lightly on the wall for support. That's when I heard them. Voices drifted from James's study, sharp and unguarded. "I hope this is her last birthday," Rebecca said, her champagne glass catching the light. "I've already planned how I'll turn her studio into the most magnificent closet." My breath caught, my hand tightening on the wall. "Patience, darling," James replied, his voice cool, detached. "My son, my defender, now a stranger. The doctor says her heart won't last much longer. When it happens, all this becomes ours." Their glasses clinked, followed by soft laughter. 50 years designing buildings had taught me to assess structural integrity under pressure. I straightened, composed my face into the pleasant mask I'd perfected in male-dominated boardrooms, and returned to my guests. James's toast later that evening, "To the best mother a son could ask for," rang hollow. I saw him clearly now. The son who struggled to escape my shadow, whose resentment flared when magazines called him Caroline Weber's son, rather than his own man. My eyes, clear for the first time in years, traced the room. I saw how James had taken control after Lane's death, first managing my technology, then my finances, and finally my medications for my dangerous heart condition. Each step had been calculated, deliberate. That night, alone in my bedroom, I stared at the ceiling. James's ambition, his hunger for the approval his father withheld, had twisted into something darker. My late husband, resentful of my success, had passed that bitterness to our son. I saw it all now, the slow erosion of my autonomy under the guise of care. Morning came, and I watched from my window as James and Rebecca left for their daily routines. Martha, my housekeeper of 30 years, brought my breakfast. She'd been with me through pneumonia when Elaine couldn't travel, and I'd quietly funded her daughter's college education after her husband's death. "Martha," I whispered, "I need to tell you something terrible, and I need your help." Her eyes widened with concern, then hardened with understanding as I recounted what I'd overheard. "Mrs. Weber, I've noticed them changing your medications," she said. "I've suspected something was wrong for months, but didn't know how to approach you. Whatever you need, I'm with you." Her loyalty, born of years of mutual respect, anchored me. Alone in my studio later, I dialed a number I hadn't called in nearly a decade. "Victor," I said when he answered, my voice cracking. "It's Caroline." The silence stretched, heavy with decades of unspoken feelings from a relationship cut short when I chose family over love. "I need your help," I said finally, "and I think you'll want to hear what I have to say about the urban hub concept." His voice, still deep and commanding, replied, "I'm listening." For the first time since finding Elaine's lifeless body 3 years ago, I felt a spark, not just anger, but purpose. I sat in my studio, examining my life with the precision I once applied to structural calculations. How had I let this happen? James had inserted himself into every facet of my existence while I grieved Elaine. After her aneurysm, he'd stepped in, exploiting my vulnerability. By August 2024, he'd convinced me to switch from Dr. Leonard, my trusted physician of 20 years, to Dr. Harrison, his cardiac specialist friend. I studied my trembling hands. Were they deteriorating naturally, or was it the cocktail of medications James insisted I take, administered by his own hand each morning and night? Martha brought tea, closing the door softly. "I've been documenting the changes in your medications," she whispered, placing a small notebook beside me. "The labels don't match what's in the containers. I started keeping notes 8 months ago when your symptoms worsened after each prescription update. I took the notebook, genuinely moved. Thank you, Martha. You've risked your position. She shook her head. When my husband died and Alicia needed college money, you created a scholarship that preserved our dignity. Some loyalties can't be bought. She confessed they'd been paying her to report my confused behaviors, but she'd been feeding them what they wanted to hear. Using an untraceable phone Martha procured, I called Dr. Leonard. Caroline Weber, he exclaimed. James told us you preferred his specialist. I lowered my voice. Edward, I need your help discreetly. I believe I'm being poisoned. We arranged to meet at his colleague's private practice in Evanston. That afternoon, while James thought I was napping, Martha drove me to the appointment. Dr. Leonard's examination was thorough. Your heart is strong as ever, Caroline. The tremors, confusion, and weakness are consistent with anticholinergic toxicity and possibly benzodiazepine overdose, not heart disease. I nodded, the confirmation chilling, but unsurprising. I'll need to report this, he said gravely. Not yet, I pleaded. If they're confronted now, they'll accelerate their plan or claim I'm delusional. I need time. He reluctantly agreed to give me 3 weeks to secure legal protection. On the drive back, Martha asked, How will you avoid taking the pills? He watches you swallow them. I smiled faintly. My husband was an actor. He taught me a few tricks. I can create a pocket under my tongue, but I'll need to maintain the symptoms to avoid suspicion. That evening, James brought my medication with practiced concern, standing over me as I placed the pills in my mouth, sipped water, and swallowed, tucking them under my tongue. You seem better tonight, he remarked, studying me. I let my hand tremble as I reached for the glass, spilling a few drops. Just a momentary clarity, I said softly. They come and go. He nodded, satisfied, and left. Alone, I extracted the tablets and hid them, knowing tomorrow I'd begin building the evidence to prove my son was trying to kill me. February 15th, 2025, 1 month after my 75th birthday revelation, I had established a careful routine. Each morning, I pretended to swallow the pills James brought, tucking them under my tongue with the sleight of hand my late husband taught me. Later, I'd extract them and add them to a growing collection hidden in a hollowed-out architectural history book. Dr. Leonard, my trusted physician, had arranged legitimate prescriptions through Martha, allowing my recovery to begin in secret. My tremors lessened slightly, and the cognitive fog lifted on good days, but I maintained the facade of frailty to avoid suspicion. That morning, I met Michael Donovan, a detective Victor hired, during one of my scheduled physical therapy sessions. Martha drove me to the medical building, where we slipped out a service entrance to meet Michael in an unmarked car. A former Boston police officer specializing in financial crimes against the elderly, he had a no-nonsense demeanor that matched my own. They've been methodical, he said, spreading financial statements across the back seat. James started with small transfers to offshore accounts, increasing as your condition worsened. Just over 2 million so far. I nodded, the betrayal settling into a cold, detached resolve. And Dr. Harrison? I asked. Michael's jaw tightened. He's got a pattern. 3 wealthy patients in the last 5 years, all with heart conditions, all leaving estates to family members who were his patients first. He prescribes drug combinations that cause deterioration over time. Death certificates red, natural causes, clean. By May 10th, 5 days before the dinner, my transformation needed to be both strategic and visual. At Victor's penthouse, where I'd been secretly preparing, I tried on a black designer suit. Too severe, Victor commented. I'm not attending a funeral, I agreed, though I was burying the passive woman I'd become. We chose a crimson dress, its clean lines projecting strength. My silver hair, once styled soft and grandmotherly at James's insistence, was now a sleek bob framing my face with authority. They won't recognize you, Victor said, awe in his voice. That's the point, I replied, practicing in moderate heels, a challenge after months of feigned regression. 3 hours before the dinner, I met Elizabeth Chun in her office. Officers will be in plain clothes at the exits, she explained. No arrests tonight, just information gathering. The documentation is ready. Financial records, medical evidence, surveillance transcripts. She patted a leather portfolio. The wheels of justice move slowly, especially with well-connected perpetrators. I nodded. I've designed enough buildings to know foundations matter more than speed. Martha helped me prepare at Victor's, concealing a medical alert device. Dr. Leonard insisted I were due to lingering cardiac effects. They won't know what hit them, she whispered, fastening my mother's pearls, ones Rebecca had already claimed around my neck. As Victor drove me to the Palmer Club, I saw James and Rebecca greeting guests. James looked resplendent in a new suit, Rebecca glittering with my jewelry, already migrated to her possession. A wave of lightheadedness hit, a remnant of the poisoning. I took a deep breath, centering myself. Ready? Victor asked, offering his arm. I've been designing this moment for 4 months. We timed our entrance perfectly, after all guests arrived, just as James grew visibly anxious about my absence. The maitre d' announced, Mr. Victor Morales and Mrs. Caroline Weber. Heads turned, recognition dawning slowly, followed by confusion and amazement. I walked with measured grace, my recovering body channeling the architect who once commanded international conferences. Mother, James gasped as if seeing a ghost. He had, the ghost of the woman he tried to erase. James, Rebecca, I nodded coolly. Thank you for this lovely event. Rebecca's eyes darted between Victor and me, calculations flickering. You're looking well, she stammered. Amazing what proper medication can do, I replied, my smile revealing nothing and everything. The Palmer Club dining room buzzed with anticipation as I sat, the crimson dress a stark contrast to the frail Mother James and Rebecca expected. My recovery, though incomplete, allowed me to project the architect I'd been, confident, commanding. The lingering tremors in my hands, hidden beneath the table, reminded me of the stakes. Across the room, James struggled to reconcile the woman before him with the diminished figure he'd left at home. Rebecca's smile was tight, her eyes calculating as she navigated conversations with guests, many of whom were influential figures in Chicago's architectural and business circles. Dinner progressed, each course a step closer to the moment I'd designed. Victor, seated beside me, offered subtle support, his presence grounding me through occasional waves of dizziness, a persistent echo of the poisoning. The Carrington Group executives, Elizabeth Chun, and several architecture critics were among the 24 attendees, their presence carefully curated. James, unaware of the trap, rose to clink his glass. I have an announcement, he began, voice brimming with rehearsed pride. I'm thrilled to share that I've been named partner at Westridge Development, a role that will shape Chicago's skyline for years. Polite applause followed, but I caught Victor's eye, a nod passing between us. Congratulations, James, I said, my voice steady as I stood. I also have an announcement. The room fell silent, all eyes on me. On cue, the Carrington executives and my legal team entered as if waiting in the wings, which they were. I'm pleased to announce the launch of the Urban Hub, a $120 million urban renewal project to transform the old industrial district. Wait staff, instructed earlier, placed elegant portfolios at each setting, detailing the sustainable complex Victor and I had designed decades ago, now revived. Murmurs of excitement rippled through the room, but I wasn't done. That's not all, I continued, my gaze locking on James, whose face drained of color. I'm proud to announce the Weber Foundation for Young Architects, which, as of last month, owns my residence, preserved as an educational center. Rebecca's champagne glass froze midair, her composure cracking. And finally, I said, nodding to Elizabeth Chun, who stepped forward with her leather portfolio, some legal matters require immediate attention. Elizabeth quietly handed James documents outlining investigations into financial fraud, medical manipulation, and conspiracy. The room stilled, the air heavy with shock. This is ridiculous, James sputtered, skimming the papers. My mother's been confused for months. Ask her doctor. Elizabeth's voice was calm but unyielding. Dr. Harrison is currently under medical board review. His cooperation could reduce his charges. Rebecca, ever pragmatic, distanced herself. James handled all medical decisions, she said quickly. I was rarely involved. Elizabeth's team produced highlighted surveillance transcripts, contradicting her claim. Guests began slipping away, uncomfortable witnesses to the unfolding drama. The Carrington executives, however, remained firmly at my side, their support a clear signal of where power now lay. James, desperation replacing shock, tried one last plea. Mother, you're clearly unwell. Let's discuss this tomorrow after you've rested. I met his gaze directly. I've never been clearer, James. 4 months of your poisoning required 3 months of recovery, but I'm fully capable now. Poisoning? That's absurd, he protested, but his eyes darted to the plainclothes officers at the exits. Elizabeth interjected, "We have the medication analysis and Martha's statement about the pill substitutions she witnessed." At Martha's name, James's expression darkened. That interfering, careful, I cut in. Your position is precarious enough without witness intimidation. Rebecca, seeing their plan collapse, made her move. I need the restroom, she murmured, reaching for her purse. Elizabeth nodded to a female detective, who stepped forward with a professional smile. My colleague will accompany you, Mrs. Weber. The orchestration was flawless, no dramatic arrests, just the quiet pressure of consequences closing in. As the room emptied, James's new firm partners drifted away, their nods curt, their social calculations shifting in real time. You've destroyed my career, he said when we were nearly alone, anger replacing panic. No, James, I replied. You destroyed it yourself, along with our relationship, the moment you decided my death was a path to your advancement. For the first time, he didn't deny it. You never understood what it was like being your son, always in your shadow, never measuring up. Dad understood, he felt it too. His mention of my late husband, who resented my success, was meant to wound. Once it might have. Now it was just another manipulation. I stood, Victor at my side, and left James to face the wreckage of his choices. The Urban Hub portfolios remained on the tables, a testament to my reclaimed legacy. Outside, Martha waited in the car, her presence a reminder of loyalties that couldn't be bought. As we drove away, I felt not triumph, but resolve. The foundation was secure, the project launched, and justice, though slow, was in motion. 2 months after the Palmer Club dinner, I sat across from Elizabeth Chun in her prosecutor's office, reviewing the mounting evidence against James, Rebecca, and Dr. Harrison. The case had strengthened as financial forensics uncovered the full scope of their scheme. The medication evidence is damning, Elizabeth said, spreading lab reports across her desk. The combinations Dr. Harrison prescribed were designed to mimic dementia and heart failure. I studied the documents with clinical detachment, the visceral betrayal that once consumed me now dulled by purpose. James's accounts show just over $2 million transferred to offshore holdings, she continued. The court has frozen everything pending trial. I studied the documents, my architect's eye spotting patterns. Show me everything on Rebecca. Michael hesitated. This might be hard, Mrs. Weber. I found out my son is trying to murder me for my money, I said flatly. I doubt anything could be harder. He handed me a folder. Inside were photos of Rebecca with a man I didn't recognize, their intimacy unmistakable. More troubling were the documents they reviewed. Blueprints of my house, property valuations. Stephen Kaufman, Michael explained, a real estate broker specializing in luxury properties. Rebecca was investigated for elder financial abuse in Boston 5 years ago. The case was dropped when the victim died before charges could be filed. The pieces connected. So my son married a professional predator. Michael nodded. They're not just planning your death. They're already spending the proceeds. That evening, I began sketching, not buildings, but a trap. Every architectural design starts with understanding the foundation. Mine was crumbling, but not collapsed. The physical toll of long-term medication poisoning lingered. My hands trembled when I was tired, and cognitive fog descended unpredictably. Dr. Leonard assured me these would diminish, though some damage might be permanent. These limitations shaped my plan. A direct confrontation was impossible while I was physically compromised. I needed a scenario where James and Rebecca's actions would expose them. The next morning, James brought my pills, his concern as polished as ever. I was thinking, I said, injecting confusion into my voice, perhaps we should update my will soon, just to be in order. Eagerness flashed in his eyes, poorly disguised as care. That's thoughtful, Mom. I'll call Henderson tomorrow. Not my attorney of 40 years, but his golf club friend. Another piece of the puzzle. After he left, I added the pills to my collection. My justice, like any good design, required patience to avoid compromising its integrity. By March 10th, nearly 2 months into my covert resistance, I'd mastered appearing friendlier when James or Rebecca watched, while using unsupervised time to rebuild my strength. That day, I met Richard Anderson, a formidable Chicago elder law attorney, at his downtown office, disguised as another medical appointment. Victor had arranged it. Mrs. Weber, Richard said, reviewing my evidence, Martha's notebook, Michael's financial reports, my hidden pills. This is elder abuse, financial fraud, and potentially attempted homicide. We should go to the authorities now. I shook my head. A premature legal battle would be draining, and James is well connected. I need an airtight case and a strategy to ensure they gain nothing. Richard's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. What do you have in mind? I outlined my plan. A public revelation timed to maximize exposure, paired with a property transfer to an educational foundation to protect my assets. His skepticism turned to admiration. It's unorthodox but effective. The foundation is legally sound and hard to contest. Timing the revelation is critical. They can't know until it's done. After the meeting, Victor drove me back to the medical center where Martha waited. You're taking risks, Caroline, he said, concern in his voice. I'm eliminating them, I replied. Every day under their control is a day they could accelerate their plan. The Urban Hub project, our shared vision from decades ago, became my anchor. The Carrington Group, a progressive development firm, had approached me months before my birthday, unaware of my supposed decline. They don't know your situation? Victor asked. It's largely fabricated by James and Dr. Harrison, I corrected. Professionally, I've kept my standing intact. At home, I played my role, letting James help with financial documents I wasn't allowed to read closely. Each interaction was recorded by the surveillance system Michael installed during a weekend when James and Rebecca were at a Milwaukee gala. As the original architect of my home, I knew every hidden cavity and conduit, perfect for concealing microcameras and audio devices. That evening, I overheard James on the phone with Dr. Harrison through the system. She's asking about her will, James said, voice tense. Is it time to adjust her medication? Carefully, Harrison replied. The combination is already at maximum effectiveness without obvious toxicity. Rushing risks suspicion. My time was running out, but so was theirs. The foundation paperwork was nearly complete, the Carrington contract ready. Elizabeth Chun, a rising prosecutor whose mother I'd mentored, agreed to review my case. The trap was taking shape, its foundation as solid as any building I'd ever designed. April 5th, 2025, nearly 3 months into my secret resistance, I stood at a critical juncture. The physical toll of the prolonged medication poisoning lingered, mornings when my right hand went numb, moments when words slipped from my grasp like sand. Dr. Leonard assured me these episodes would lessen, but the damage required careful management, consistent meals, hydration, and rest. Martha, now my unwavering ally, placed a tray beside my drafting table where I worked on the Urban Hub plans. You need to eat, Mrs. Weber, she insisted. I glanced up, realizing I'd skipped lunch again, lost in designs that felt like a lifeline to my former self. The Urban Hub, the sustainable urban complex Victor and I envisioned decades ago, was gaining momentum. During our daily secure call, Victor shared, the Carrington Group is impressed. They value your vision over your ability to visit sites, despite your physical limitations. He paused. The Weber Foundation for Young Architects now legally owns your property. James won't know until the public filing, which we can delay until the confrontation. I allowed a moment of satisfaction. The foundation would protect my home from James and Rebecca's grasp, transforming it into an educational center. My plan hinged on a public event, a dinner at the Palmer Club on May 15th, proposed by Rebecca with predictable calculation. She knocked on my studio door, a rare visit. Caroline, I was thinking about the anniversary of your first major commission next month. she said, her warmth rehearsed. What if we host a special dinner at the Palmer Club? James just got a membership. It'd be lovely to celebrate you. I blinked, feigning confusion while inwardly rejoicing. They were setting their own stage. That's wonderful, dear, I replied, my voice quavering appropriately. How thoughtful. After she left, I texted Martha. They're planning the event. May 15th, perfect timing. That night, I overheard James on the patio through the surveillance system Michael installed. It's taking too long, he told Dr. Harrison, voice tight. The Westridge partnership requires capital I don't have. Harrison says we need to accelerate. Patience, Harrison replied. Rush now and you risk everything. The next morning, James brought my medication with a new pill, larger, faintly green. Dr. Harrison suggested a supplement for your circulation, he said, smoothly. I nodded, tucking it under my tongue with the others. Alone, I sealed it in a plastic bag and texted Michael. New medication introduced. Need analysis ASAP. 2 days later, Michael confirmed my fears. It's a higher dose of the same drug causing your symptoms, designed to accelerate heart and kidney damage. They're done waiting. Neither was I. Over the next week, I finalized my counteroffensive with Victor, Michael, and Richard Anderson, the elder law attorney. The Carrington contract was ready, the foundation paperwork complete, and Elizabeth Chun, the prosecutor, had a robust case file. I also immersed myself in the urban hub designs, my architectural vision sharpened by a newfound appreciation for spaces that balanced vulnerability and strength. The Weber Foundation's opening had been a triumph. My former home, now an educational center, welcomed its first cohort of 20 scholarship students. Martha, now the administrative director, stood beside me as reporters gathered. Mrs. Weber, how does it feel to see your home transformed? An Architectural Digest reporter asked. I stepped to the microphone, steady despite occasional vertigo from the poisoning's aftermath. Architecture is about transformation, ideas into spaces where lives unfold. This building has been a home, a battleground, and now a legacy. A Chicago Tribune reporter pressed, your son's sentencing? Elizabeth moved to intervene, but I raised a hand. He made his choices. The court set the consequences. Today is about creation. These students are the future. That evening, the Carrington Group hosted a reception for Urban Hub's first building groundbreaking. At 76, I was no longer an elderly curiosity, but a respected architect again. The community center's wellness and employment integration is remarkable, the city's sustainability director noted. I smiled. Architecture designs systems for human flourishing. My reflection in a mirrored wall showed a woman transformed, posture straight, gaze direct, despite the occasional tremor. My handshake remained firm, my vision intact. Elizabeth approached with news. Harrison's cooperation is closing cases for 2 families, with a third promising. Your case set a precedent. I nodded, the weight of helping others settling alongside my own survival. As I left James in the prison, I felt no need for further words. Some structures, once fundamentally damaged, can only be left behind. My new home awaited, its glass and steel designed for clarity and strength, much like the life I was building, one where trust, purpose, and creation define my legacy, not betrayal. Below is the rewritten and corrected version of the provided text, concluding the first-person narrative from Caroline Weber's perspective. This is Chapter 7 of 7, situated in Act 3, resolution of the 3-act structure. It builds directly on Chapter 6, reflecting on Caroline's transformed life, the progress of the Urban Hub and Weber Foundation, and her final reckoning with the past. The narrative is polished for clarity, with errors corrected, punctuation properly placed, and unnecessary elements removed, while preserving the original story's essence. The chapter is approximately 4,000 characters long, ensuring a seamless and satisfying conclusion. 2 years after overhearing Rebecca's chilling birthday wish, I stood on the terrace of my new lakeside home, a modernist structure of glass, steel, and warm wood tailored to my needs. Its clean lines accommodated the occasional vertigo and tremors that lingered from the poisoning, yet emphasized strength and clarity, qualities that define my rebuilt life. The Chicago skyline glimmered in the distance, a mix of buildings I designed decades ago and newer creations, a reminder that architecture, like life, evolves through deliberate choices. Howard Carrington raised his glass to a small gathering of allies, to Caroline Weber and Urban Hub's second phase. The cheers echoed as I surveyed the group, not family by blood, but a community forged through trust. Martha, now the Weber Foundation's administrative director, stood with her daughter, the foundation's educational director. Michael Donovan transitioned from detective to security consultant, chatted with the first graduating class of Weber Scholarship recipients. Elizabeth Chun, now a federal judge, and her family mingled with the Carrington team. Victor, arriving late from a meeting, joined us. Singapore investors had questions about sustainability metrics, he said, accepting a glass from Martha. The past 2 years had reshaped my understanding of what mattered. My recovery had plateaued 6 months prior. The tremors in my right hand and occasional cognitive lapses were permanent, but I'd integrated them into my work and life, much like adapting a building to its site's constraints. The Urban Hub's community impact was undeniable. Elizabeth, examining a project report, noted the statistics are remarkable. I smiled. The foundation, housed in my former home, was nurturing young architects, while Urban Hub's innovative designs were transforming Chicago's social fabric. Victor's relationship with me had evolved into a partnership of equals, separate homes, intertwined lives, rooted in mutual respect. You seem contemplative, he observed as we sat watching moonlight on Lake Michigan. I received a letter from James, I said, his first in 18 months. Victor's expression tightened. What did he want? To say he's eligible for parole next year. He's completed rehabilitation programs, found religion, written a memoir about toxic family dynamics. Victor raised an eyebrow. Will you respond? I shook my head. There's nothing left to say. Some buildings can't be salvaged after fundamental damage. They're studied for their failures and left behind. The legal proceedings had concluded swiftly, thanks to overwhelming evidence and plea deals. James received 8 years, parole after 5, for financial elder abuse, fraud, and attempted aggravated assault. Rebecca got 3 years, parole after 18 months, for conspiracy and fraud. Dr. Harrison, with 6 years and a revoked medical license, provided evidence that opened investigations into 3 other suspicious deaths of elderly patients, bringing closure to families. My case had set a precedent, Elizabeth told me, creating a template for prosecuting elder abuse. A year prior, at the foundation's opening, I'd stood before reporters and declared, architecture is about transformation, from ideas to spaces where lives unfold. This building, once a battleground, is now a legacy. The students behind me represented the future, not James, whose sentencing I'd addressed with calm resolve. He made his choices. Today is about creation. Now, at this gathering, Howard called for a speech. I demurred. I'm an architect, Howard. We build, not talk. Victor laughed. I've seen your client presentations. You're no stranger to words. Yielding, I stepped to the terrace's edge, the Urban Hub model nearby. 2 years ago, I faced a choice: accept a planned ending or design a new beginning. As an architect, the answer was clear. I gestured to the model. We build. But the most important designs aren't buildings, they're connections, trust, purpose, the structures of meaning we create together. Murmurs of agreement followed. After guests left, Victor and I lingered. Any regrets? He asked. I considered the question. The poisoning's physical scars, tremors, memory lapses, reduced stamina had forced innovative adaptations in my home and work. Only that I didn't call you sooner, I admitted. I lost years to fear before James ever gave me those pills. Victor took my hand, fingers intertwining. We have now, and we're making good use of it. Inside, Urban Hub's third phase plans awaited review, alongside scholarship applications. My hand trembled slightly, a reminder of what I'd endured, but like any good architect, I'd incorporated this reality into my design. To second chances, I said, raising my glass. And to the architects who build them, Victor replied. Against the skyline, where my past and present stood side by side, I embraced the truth that had saved me. It's never too late to redesign your life. James now lived in a rented apartment. His partnership offer from Westridge Development rescinded as news of the investigation rippled through Chicago's professional circles. Rebecca, staying with her sister in Milwaukee, was positioning herself as a victim, claiming James manipulated her. Her counsel is pushing for a cooperation agreement, Elizabeth said. She's willing to testify against James and Harrison for reduced charges. I nodded. Is it worth considering? Potentially, she replied. Her testimony could strengthen the case against Harrison, whose medical crimes are harder to prosecute without insider accounts. That afternoon, I joined the Carrington Group at their downtown offices for my first formal business meeting in years. My recovery continued, though limitations persisted: occasional tremors, fleeting memory lapses, reduced stamina. Victor navigated these gracefully, stepping in when words escaped me. Your preliminary urban hub designs are generating buzz, Howard Carrington said, reviewing the timeline. Your return is a major event in architectural circles. I smiled, the validation grounding me in a way I hadn't felt in decades. Later, at Victor's penthouse where I'd been staying, I found an unexpected visitor in the lobby. James looked worn, unshaven, eyes bloodshot, clothes unpressed. The doorman shifted uncomfortably. Mrs. Weber, I explained you don't accept unscheduled visitors. It's all right, Henry, I said calmly. We'll talk here. James straightened, attempting to summon his old confidence. Mother, this has gone far enough. The family's dirty laundry is a public spectacle. Attempted murder isn't dirty laundry, James, I replied. It's a felony. He flinched. That's an exaggeration. I manage your medication and finances because you were confused. Perhaps Harrison's approach was aggressive. Stop. I cut in, my voice sharp as a steel beam. I've seen your texts with Harrison discussing dosages to accelerate my decline. I've heard recordings of you and Rebecca planning to make my death look natural. His face paled. What do you want? He asked finally. Money? The house? It's not even yours anymore. I want nothing from you, I said, seeing him clearly. A stranger wearing my son's face. You could have had everything legitimately, James. Love, opportunity, support. Instead, you chose this. He tried one last plea, his voice softening to the tone he used when administering my pills. Mom, we're still family. I studied him, feeling a strange calm replace the hurt. No, James. We're plaintiff and defendant. That's the relationship you chose. That evening, Victor and I dined on his terrace overlooking Lake Michigan. Our relationship had evolved into a comfortable partnership, not romantic, but rooted in mutual respect. You're quiet, he observed, pouring wine. I'm thinking about James's visit, I admitted, sharing the encounter. Part of me wants to push for maximum sentences. What's stopping you? He asked. Practicality. A trial would be draining, potentially harming the foundation and urban hub. And maybe I'm ready to build something new instead of tearing down the old. Later, unable to sleep, I worked at my drafting table in Victor's library, now my studio. My phone rang, an unfamiliar number. Mrs. Weber, it's Rebecca, came the tentative voice. How did you get this number? I asked, my grip tightening on the pencil. That's not important. I need to speak before I accept the plea deal. I stayed silent, waiting. It wasn't my idea, the medication, I mean. James and Harrison arranged everything. I just went along. Her sincerity was as practiced as ever. The recording suggests otherwise, I countered. She paused. I found clarity, spiritual growth through this. I nearly laughed. You found Jesus facing prison. How convenient. Her composure cracked. James manipulated me like he did you. I was young when we met, impressionable. You were 34, with an MBA and a prior elder abuse investigation in Boston, I said. Michael Donovan is thorough. Her sharp intake of breath confirmed I'd struck a nerve. That case was dropped. Yes, when the victim died. Convenient timing is your pattern, Rebecca. Her pretense vanished. You think you've won, don't you? The great Caroline Weber, back on top. But James was right. You'll die alone, surrounded by blueprints instead of family. I'd rather die with honest blueprints than dishonest family, I replied, ending the call. The urban hub plans lay before me, a reminder of what I was building. My hands trembled slightly, a permanent scar from their betrayal. But I incorporated this reality into my designs, just as I'd adapted my life to my new limitations. Justice was in motion, and my legacy was taking shape, not through James, but through the foundation and the lives it would touch. 5 months after the Palmer Club confrontation, I stood in the visitors' area of a minimum security federal prison, waiting for James. The room's beige walls and humming vending machines mimicked normalcy, but the plastic chairs and guarded exits betrayed its purpose, controlled interaction between the free and the imprisoned. Victor had offered to come, but this was a journey I needed to face alone. James entered in a khaki uniform, his frame thinner, hair grayer, the arrogance I once knew replaced by weary caution. "Mother," he said, sitting across from me, "this is unexpected." "Is it?" I replied. "I informed your attorney I'd be coming." He nodded, gesturing vaguely. "I didn't think you'd actually show. Why are you here?" A fair question. Over the past months, I'd rebuilt my life while his unraveled. The Weber Foundation for Young Architects was thriving. The Urban Hub project had broken ground on its second building, and my new lakeside home, designed to accommodate my lingering physical limitations, was nearly complete. "I wanted to see you," I said simply, before I moved forward completely. His eyes narrowed. "Move forward." "I'm leaving for a 3-month architectural tour next week. Singapore, Tokyo, Barcelona, to study urban development for Urban Hub's next phase. At 76, with the health issues you caused, travel is a significant undertaking." His voice carried a hint of his old calculation. "Planning to update your will first?" I smiled at his persistence. "There's nothing left for you, James. The foundation owns the house. My professional assets are in a trust for architectural education, and my remaining wealth is for scholarships and medical research." "Then why come?" he asked, confusion crossing his face. I studied him, my only child, once my hope for legacy, and felt pity, not anger. To understand not just what you did, but why. What makes someone decide their parent's life is worth less than their impatience for inheritance? He looked away. "You wouldn't understand." "Try me," I said. "Rebuilding my life required understanding what went wrong." He exhaled. "It started small. After Dad died, you were so capable, running the firm, winning awards, needing nothing from anyone. When Anna Lane died, you seemed vulnerable, human. So you exploited that," I said. He winced. "I helped at first, genuinely. But then I saw how easily you accepted my guidance, technology, finances. It felt like power in our relationship. Rebecca saw opportunity. She's always been practical." I leaned forward. "The new medication, introduced before the confrontation, that was meant to be the end, wasn't it?" He didn't deny it. "Harrison said your heart wouldn't last 3 months on that regimen." I nodded, absorbing the confirmation. "You'd have watched me die day by day." "I'd have been the devoted son caring for his ailing mother," he corrected, clinging to his narrative. Earlier that day, I'd met with Elizabeth Chun, now a federal judge after her successful prosecution of what the media called the Weber case. "They've accepted plea deals," she'd explained. James pleaded guilty to financial elder abuse, fraud, and attempted aggravated assault. 8 years, parole after 5. Rebecca got 3 years for conspiracy and fraud, parole after 18 months. Dr. Harrison, with 6 years and a revoked medical license, was cooperating, revealing 3 other suspicious deaths of elderly patients. "The plea avoids a draining trial," Elizabeth said, "where their attorneys would attack your mental competence." I'd agreed, valuing the foundation's stability over prolonged public scrutiny.